Holly, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Rachel?
Doing great. So to start, I wanted all of those shorts
Wow.
so badly. The minute I came out of that movie, I was like, I want all of Emma Stone and Bella's shorts. Like, I just want them in my collection and I want to wear them every day because
Great.
I think the costuming of this movie is just so fascinating and
Oh,
interesting, kind of like dissect, especially with Bella as a character when she kind of comes into her own and goes into from being, kind of like a little girl, like in a plaything for the men in her life into like a woman who gets to kind of pick her own
mhm.
outfits, as it were. And so for you, what was the joy of getting to kind of craft not just Bella, but like all of the costumes that we get to see in the progression of them in the film?
I mean, there's a lot of joy in all of it. I think that the really big challenge of designing Poor Things was working out Bella's journey through clothes. So that was the big thing that probably took up the most space, actually. Um, but it's all, and then sort of once I'd come up with certain themes of things to do, like certain fabrics to use, an approach, then I could apply it to other people. So texture is definitely something that applies to everybody. It starts with Bella and thinking about what would be the things that would most be the best way to tell her story through clothes. Um, and then sort of extending it outwards to other characters in the film, to the background, to everything, color palette. Does that
Yeah,
answer your question? No.
yeah. And did you guys get to have fun? Because obviously it is by design its own kind of Frankenstein story, but it is vibrant and colorful and exciting. So it is telling this Frankenstein story in a way that we've never really gotten to see one because it's
Yeah,
so colorful. And so,
yeah.
did you guys get to have that conversation of like how you were using color, especially in the costumes?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was working very closely with Yorgos and also with Shona Heath early on. Shona Heath, one half of the production design team. So we would have many conversations like this on Zoom. It was during the pandemic. We would speak, often sharing images on a screen, but it was very clear from those early meetings that we were going for color. Like we were not doing a sort of gothic Frankenstein film. And so that I wasn't thinking at all about Frankenstein when I was designing these costumes. I was thinking about Poor Things, and I think that was quite useful because I could have easily gone down a sort of classic, hammer horror sort of aesthetic. But strangely, it does kind of have some of those qualities in the film, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, with the certain things. So it was very clear that the colours had to be really different, the different sections of the film. The first part of the film, we worked very carefully on the colours. And then, Yorgos decided to shoot that in black and white. So there was that was a really interesting pinky, Yorgos called it the rotten apple palette. And then Lisbon was this beautiful sort of macaroony, Lisbony, sunny palette when her world's kind of opened up. She's come out of that house and it's all there for her to experience. It's really joyful. There's a whole. I mean, yeah, the colors were a big part of it. Yeah.
And it's fun too because her hair is so kind of dark in
Mm,
like see the contrast, especially on those costumes of
yeah.
just how her hair continues to grow. Because like it is established in it, her hair grows so fast. And to
Yeah.
see the length of it on those costumes is so cool
Yeah,
throughout the
it's
movie.
great, isn't it? Yorgos had a picture of it was an Egan Sheila drawing or little painting of an Egan Sheila girl with this nude with this great long hair that came all the way down, and that very much came from him. And so the colors had to work with this very black hair. So I was able to use colors that maybe I wouldn't have used normally on somebody with if Emma's if the hair had been blonde or a more natural color or
Mhm.
a more sort of expected color. It's quite a surprise to use that black hair on Emma Stone, but she carried it brilliantly. and it worked really well with her skin tone. So it meant that we could use yellow, which is a very challenging color to use often on people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, yeah.
But yeah, and I also think they're not as fun to talk about, but I do think the male costumes in this movie are interesting too, because though they are a little less exciting, they are all very distinct too. Because I think like Ruffalo's costumes are not something that like God would wear, and they're not something that like Rami's character would wear. Like they're all very distinct to those three men. And so when you are kind of looking at how those three dress within that time period, even though they are, three gentlemen who are all kind of wearing the same kind of pieces of clothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find things that were like unique for those three men? Like what, like, was there one thing that you're like, yes, this is what God would put on versus something that like this man would wear and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really felt like it was really very important that they didn't all wear a sort of whilst of course they're all wearing trousers and they're all wearing jackets and shirts, there's certain components that are all the same, but I wanted them to have a very different quality and a different approach. So, Baxter, the way that he dresses, we often see him in these boiler suits, and they're
Mhm.
made in, we call them siren suits, and they're made in wool and very luxurious fabrics. He's got very beautiful taste. So he has this quilted unison suit, siren suit. It's quite utilitarian. The idea is that he's really progressive. So he's a bit ahead with the way that he dresses. When he goes out to the medical school, he wears a three-piece suit and is a little bit more traditional because he needs to fit into that world. Um, and then Max is, the whole idea of him is that it starts from this line in the script where Tony wrote that there's one of the fops in the university turns around and tells him to get himself a suit. So there's this idea that he's quite poor. So there's a sort of impoverishedness to the student look that he wears. It's all a bit ill-fitting. He doesn't have a lot of sexual agency, so he needed to feel a little bit sort of childlike in a way, not childlike, but a little bit pubescent, not like a fully evolved man. And there's a journey with his costumes. He ends up by the end of the film, he has a really decent suit and a proper starched collar, and when he's a fully fledged doctor. Mark Ruffalo's character Duncan, he is in this sort of classic city lawyer's frock coat, top hat, morning trends, but I did incorporate a lot of texture into his costumes, a lot of, very subtly. I was trying to push a lot of interesting texture in there. And then when he goes away to Lisbon, he has this very sort of flamboyant holiday outfit, which is the gold suit, and he's a bit of a dandy, but he's still a lawyer. He isn't too out there. He's not so I think the whole point of him is that he thinks he's very special, but he's actually quite conventional and traditional, really. So his clothes needed to reflect that sort of not conservativeness, but they needed to be quite true to periods, I guess, and
Yeah.
the telling of his profession as a lawyer. You know,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So there's Baxter wears a lot of plastic. He's the future guy. He's a man of the future. He's a progressive. Um, in their house, we used quite a lot of plastic in the film, and we kept that very much for Baxter and his family. So he and Max in the surgery, and Mrs. Prim, they all wear these plasticky surgical wear. Bella, she has lots of plastic incorporated into her clothes so that they're white clean, like her frilly fronts of her blouses are plastic so they can wipe the food off, and she has little pinafore slips that are plastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. And it is, there's so many distinct kind of locations and parts. And so for our last question, I do want to ask, with something that is so kind of distinct of all the places they go and all of these different locations, what for you was the most kind of fun to get to dive into and design as a costume designer?
I think the beginning, the house, when we start off, I think just finding that language was Did you say the most challenging or the most fun?
Either or both for
I
you.
think the most fun thing, once we got going, I think it was quite very fun to put those looks together. So, those looks, like I had this fitting with Emma Stone in Athens because I couldn't see the actors because it was the pandemic before, very much before we started filming. So I got Emma in, we managed to meet her in Athens, and I took a big dressing up box of, big suitcase actually of things to try on. And we had a lot of fun trying. Once we found this language, then we could play. So these, shorts with big blouses, and that was the most fun bit, the dressing up part. I think the most challenging bit was working out how to create a trajectory for that character and to tell that story.
Yeah, and I think you did a beautiful job. I love Bella Baxter so much. I'm
Also,
obsessed with
those shorts, you can probably get them from your local vintage shop, can't you?
I
They're
want to
like
get
a
them.
1930s pants. So
I want to go and get them so badly. I came out of that room was like, I want all those shorts and
yeah,
I'll wear the whole outfit. I don't care.
really hard to get big enough sleeves. I'm finding, trying to
Oh,
find them, can't
yeah.
get them big enough.
We hopefully this movie will start to control the big sleeves.
That'll be good. I'll have to start designing blouses and pants for people to wear.
Yeah. So the next Halloween we can
Yeah.
have the Bella
Yes.
Baxter.
Halloween. Oh,
But
I'll
thank
try
you
and
so much for talking
find
with
the
me.
podcast on Saturday. I've still got time.
But yeah, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you for all your lovely observations. Nice to meet you.
Have a great one.
Bye.